Hello, we are Team 5, and we are proud to present our presentation of media convergence and concentration.
A media oligopoly. The whole media is controlled by a few corporations thanks to deregulation by the FCC.
You mean Disney, Fox, Westinghouse, and good old GE?
They own networks from CBS to CNBC.
They can use them to say whatever they please and put down the opinions of anyone who disagrees.
Well, you will be surprised about this video, but it's a 20 seconds summary of what we're going to talk today. So our table of content, we will go through an article review, the chapter 13 of the book of the class. Then we will show you some infographics about this article. Then we will see 2 case studies to expand the topic we're going to talk today. So the first point, the article overview. As you have may read, the purpose of the chapter is to investigate how the media industries are becoming more concentrated or not, and whether exists a fear of domination for giants companies like Google or Facebook. And all this is by analyzing a case study made in Canada. Some aspects of or characteristics of the research is that, well, it was made by the Canadian Media Concentration Research and using data from 1986 to 2016. And also, since the beginning of the study, the researchers find out that there is no systematic evidence about this topic around the world. So it was kind of difficult to collect data, and also it was highly politicized. So after knowing these characteristics of the research, we go through it. At first, some key terms. In the chapter, we've considered 2 main key terms. We're in the first one, the HHI, also known as the Herfindahl-Hirschman Index. We will not go to technical depth into here, but just for you to know that this index tells how the market is concentrated or not. And also it's a worldwide use wave of measure. And the second key term is the battle of stacks. This battle is between the global internet giants like Google, Facebook, and Apple, and conglomerates of domestic origins, in this case Canada, like Bells, Rogers, TELUS, Shaw, and Quebecor. In the battle, each one has their own purpose. The communication-centric global giants seek to control content across an expanding media universe. Meanwhile, the conglomerates try to have control in their key interfaces across the fields where they are really active. So after knowing these main things about the research, we have analyzed the key trends, in this case in Canada, but we think it can replicate all around the world, being that the market is mostly concentrated. And for example, in the content media industries, in terms of newspapers, is a moderate concentration with big players and a lot of smaller ones. And local newspapers, it's true that in the last years, mostly of them has disappeared, has closed. In terms of broadcast television, this is completely concentrated with 4 main TV groups that has around the 86% of the revenue. For the infrastructure, here we talk about the wireless and the internet access. In this case, Canada has a moderate concentration with also big players and small players. But it's true that the last years, this has been going down and changing more to a mobile wireless. But in the mobile wireless, we have a highly concentration in 3 main groups. And finally, in the internet, here is where the big global corporations lead the market, being Google the leader for the search engines as well around as the rest of the world, and Facebook leading the social media. So in conclusion, and to make it simple, right now we're living in an era with a lot of information based on equalized distributed around all the players.
We created this infographic, which is a very visual summary of what Tomas just explained. We wanted to visually represent the media market share percentages, since they are a great insight into understanding how highly concentrated the market is in Canada. As you can see, a number over 2,500 means the market is highly concentrated. Here we can see, next slide. Here we can see how all HHIs are significantly over 2,500, which clearly exemplifies how highly concentrated the market is in Canada.
Thank you, Victoria. So in this part, we will take you through 2 case studies that we found relevant to the issue, and we will try to expand the knowledge of regulation and media concentration in Europe. So the first case study is how to regulate and not regulate social media. This essay investigates the important role of social media companies in an era where they must be responsible and reliable institutions in order to create what is called the healthy digital public sphere. The article also claims that in order to understand how to regulate social media, we must understand why we want to regulate it. And therefore, social media companies are key institutions in the digital public sphere, and they hold massive control and impact on us, the users. So what is this digital public sphere? It's a space where people express their opinions, exchange views on society that is dominated by digital media and digital technologies. And therefore, social media companies either maintain or undermine the health of this public sphere. They're crucial for democracy and freedom of speech. And therefore, the goal of regulating social media is to create incentives for these companies to act responsible and trustworthy institutions, that will help foster a vibrant and digital public sphere. So moving on to the next slide, the media giants such as Facebook and Google have used the wrong motive. They chose to go with the economic incentive in order to grow bigger and buying small competitor companies and expanding their own profits. And this also led to what it's called the danger of surveillance capitalism. Facebook and Google control over the digital advertising market. They collect enormous amount of end user data. The more data they collect, the better their algorithms and the better their ability to corner the market on digital advertising. And this is why social media companies have to adopt public norms related to the important public function that they serve in the digital public sphere. And so after understanding the important role of social media companies, how should these digital companies be regulated? So the article suggests 3 policy levers. The first one is antitrust and competition law. The matter is to ensure that there are a large number of different kinds of social media companies with diverse affordance, value systems, and innovation. The second lever is privacy and consumer protection law. The goal is to change how social and digital companies think about their end user and to shift it from viewing their users as objects of manipulation. And the third lever is the balancing between intermediary liability and immunity. And so the big question here is, to what extent should social media companies be responsible for user-generated content? So right now, the situation is that social media companies have insufficient incentives to invest in moderation services. And this is why government should use the intermediary immunity as a lever to get social media companies to engage in the public digital sphere.
And in the second case study, we will look at France's concentration of the newspaper industry. In 2017, the Reporters Sans Frontières ranked France the 39th in the world regarding the nature and the level of press freedom. Since this country doesn't provide any effective protection of the confidentiality and of the journalist's sources, can France be really the homeland of human rights? Well, on the left, as you can see on the figure here, on the top, you have the owned society, and at the bottom, you have the owners. So for example, Xavier Niel here owns 100% of the company NJJ, which owns 100% of the NJJ press company, which in turn owns 27.67% of Le Monde Libre. And the Le Monde Libre is actually also owned by an Italian natural person and a famous media Spanish company. In the 2010s, the newspaper industry ownership has majorly shifted, and lots of French businessmen, moguls, and holdings have bought in. So as mentioned earlier, Le Monde has been acquired by a trio of French persons, Pierre Berger, Xavier Niel, and Mathieu Pigasse. And in the 2010s, they have deprived the journalists of the power to run their own newspaper, which had been the case since 1944. Other wealthy businessmen have become shareholders of Libération in 2015, that's Patrick Drahi. Le Parisien aujourd'hui en France was sold by the end of 2015 to the Amaury family group to LVMH Media, and Le Figaro has been controlled by the weapon and aerospace equipment group Dassault since 2004, and so on and so on. Only a few dailies have not been bought by conglomerates or holdings. So several laws have been passed to shed some light on this system, which is currently allowing holdings and physical and moral owners to hide from the public and avoid accountability. And this is especially true regarding journalistic sources' identity. And all the way back in 1944, an order issued by the National Resistance Council actually demanded that newspaper publish the name of their owners and their profession in each issue. Unfortunately, this has never been enforced. And a more recent attempt for this was made in 2016, where the law aimed at strengthening the media freedom, independence, and pluralism. And the Article 19 said that every year the publishing company must provide the publications reader with all related information of the composition of its capital, whether it's the name and identity of the shareholder and how many shares they hold. So this article is actually an important step to understanding and clearly seeing how this system works. But it's not enough because it's not being enforced. And today we still have this very opaque system. So what is the problematic here? Well, would you think that if these laws were enforced today, the nature of the newspaper ownerships in France would change? And as we all know, French people are very, revolutionary people. So do you think that this is all it would take to fundamentally change the newspaper industry? And moving on to our more specific question slide, we have analyzed this Canadian case study, and then we had a look at regulation in the current system for social media, and finally, the French newspaper industry. What do you think this means for similar or different media industry in your country? What do you think? Do you think that this phenomenon will happen in other industries? What is your opinion on social media regulation? And more generally, should freedom of expression take precedent on privacy and territorial law? Thank you.